Welcome back, fellow football fanatics. It's college football with Sam. I'm on vacation, as you probably could tell, with the different setup and the headphones that are functioning as my mic. But welcome back. Today we are joined by the Unafraid Show, George Wrighster, who's joining us to talk college football, Oregon, and many other things as well. Mostly about his pick for preseason number one being the Clemson Tigers. How are you doing today? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Sam. So, former NFL player, played at the University of Oregon, all conference player, got drafted number 104, played 7 years in the league, then went to the UFL for a year, and since then been navigating this world of TV, radio, and as it relates to sports all over. And then you can find me on YouTube for the most part right now, doing the Unafraid show, talking college football every single day, and been going around the country interviewing some of the top coaches in college football. This year already, we've had Dan Lanning, Jed Fish up at Washington, Kenny Dillingham down at Arizona State, Dan Mullen over at UNLV, Dabo Swinney at Clemson, um, Deshaun Foster at UCLA, and I know I'm forgetting a few more, but you get the gist of it.
That is really impressive. I knew that you had some of those interviews, but all of those names, and I assume you have more coming up, or are you done?
Yeah, yeah. There's one more coming up right now before the season, but then as we get into media days, there will be more. Like today we have one dropping with Will Stein, the offensive coordinator from Oregon as well. So we got a bunch more in the pocket, man. We waiting to drop them as so the fans constantly have new content, fun content, stuff that they can be excited about on the Unafraid show.
Awesome. Yeah, everyone, make sure you go over to his show, The Unafraid Show. It's going to be the first thing you find when you search it up. And make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't already on our show right here. And like the video and comment your thoughts down below because, well, we have we have several minutes to talk about a lot of different teams. You already introduced a little bit of your backstory to us, but how did your time at Oregon and your time in the NFL shape you? And maybe give us a favorite game you played in at Oregon and in the NFL.
Well, I would say it shaped me because you end up learning who you are in college. Like that's one of the biggest advantages of going to college. It's not even unless you're going to go be a doctor or a molecular chemist or something that you need all the technical skills for. The reason why you go to college is to find yourself, to discover who you are, and then try to figure out what you want to do with your life. So for me, a kid from LA getting a chance to go to, a place that was completely different than home, I got a chance to find myself, get a different group of friends, different people from different backgrounds. One of my best friends right now is is a woman who grew up in a small town in Washington who likes to hike and played soccer, and we could not have you nobody would have ever thought that we would have been as tight as we are. And you get a chance to experience different things in life. And honestly, going there, the college that you pick when you're coming out, it feels so heavy. Like you're like, oh my God, this is gonna make such a big difference in my life. And it is the truth. And there hasn't been a day that I have regretted going to the University of Oregon over all of my other choices.
That's incredible. That's as a student right now at Michigan about to graduate with a degree. Obviously, I didn't play football. I think most people who can just look at my build can tell that I didn't even actually play football. But yeah, it's you do learn a lot about yourself and there are I mean, I'm experiencing different challenges and undergoing changes myself in college. I can only imagine that doing both school and then football and then being a good enough player to play in the NFL. And I'm from Michigan. I mean, you went from Los Angeles to
Yeah.
Oregon, and Oregon is not exactly known for being this big, busy place, from my
No.
understanding of things.
No, not at all. You go from a place from at that point in time probably 8 9 million people in LA to going to a place with at 110,000 people between Eugene and Springfield combined. Now, granted, it's much bigger now. I think the population is more than doubled now. But yeah, it was a completely different place. But and I think the biggest thing is that you have to be adjustable and adaptable because a lot of times people are stuck with with how they grew up, the lifestyle. But if you can open your mind and say, all right, cool, let me find happiness here because I'm only here for a short period of time. And I tell my kids this all the time when they don't want to do something. I'm like, listen, you can do anything for a short period of time. If you change your attitude and you go about it like that this is an opportunity to learn something or do something special, then you take advantage of that opportunity.
Yes, exactly. Um, so last thing before we move on, your time in the NFL, you spent quite a bit in the NFL, picked in the fourth round, um, over half a decade. How was that? You played exclusively with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a little bit with the Giants, and then um, how did that shape you? And how's life been since then? I mean, how did you discover and build the Unafraid show?
So okay, so to go back, so the NFL shapes you because it's a business and it's not as much fun anymore. It's like watching Remember the Titans and Denzel Washington is talking to the kid and he's like, it's not any fun anymore now, is it? Is it? No, it's a business. And yes, you still do have moments of fun, but like there's a lot of money on the line for a lot of people. So you have to approach it like work, like you do a business. But when I ended up getting out of the league initially, it was super hard for me because I was still physically able to play, but I had a neck and back injury that I couldn't get cleared to play anymore. So that was hard emotionally, mentally, all of those things. And after doing a lot of therapy, healing, and all of that stuff, starting a whole new life in I've owned businesses, and then I got into TV and radio starting in 2014. And that was that's a whole new world because you're used to using your body, doing things physically, and now you're in corporate America on some level. And being um, and then I was over at Fox doing stuff over at FS1, doing college football countdown, doing and so there was a lot of opportunities there. And then this is the reason why I started the Unafraid show is because you are subjected to being hired and fired or your ability to work based upon the management, how much they like you, and their vision for what's going on, budget, all sorts of things, and who else is available, all of this. And so I wanted to create a place where I could build an audience that would travel with me no matter where I went because that's the new media. That's the way things are now is that you used to be able to go to a place and build an audience and grow that way. That's how they built stars. That's how Colin Coward was built. But now it's the opposite. Now you have to build your following first and then the opportunities come.
Yes. I started my own media journey in 2020, wasn't really consistent until 2021. And now here on College Football with Sam, we have just over 23,000 subscribers. And yeah, that's the new way to construct media. I am far from an expert on any of this. It feels like every year I learn something new. But what a journey. What a journey and what a change too. I mean, having to adapt to what seems like three different planes or fields that have some relationship, but also have a ton of differences. There's so much more I'd love to ask, but we're operating on limited time here. So I want to get to first your thoughts on Oregon for 2025. They came off a 13-0 start to regular
Yeah.
season, the championship game. You have the Ohio State loss. And after that, from my perspective, it feels like the not environment around Oregon, but the discussion around Oregon is dead. I don't feel like anyone's talking about them. Maybe I'm misguided there, but I think it's so strange because Lanning has done a great job leveling up the talent that he has at Oregon.
Yeah.
And it felt like last year, for the first time, he really did a good job, this just from my perspective, punching above his weight class. In the first 2 years, you had like the two losses to Washington that frustrated some fans. The year prior was year one. Last year, they won a lot of close games and won a game against Ohio State and some other opponents that, you look back on and think that was good coaching. So, what do you
Yeah.
think about Oregon with they lose a lot, but they're upgrading their roster? They have staff continuity. What do you think about them in 25?
I don't think that you're wrong about the fact that they're flying a little bit under the radar in terms of making the most noise, right? Because I'm getting ready to give out my off-season national championship trophy. And right now, the team that is winning the offseason won't win the national championship this year, and that's USC. They're making a lot of noise and all of that stuff. And yes, all of that is good because you do want because recruiting a lot of times is about momentum. Um it's about excitement about your program. And then there's some initial when you're growing a brand, when you are trying to hop on the scene, like for instance, like a team like Illinois is doing right now. You want to dominate the media. You want to be everywhere, people seeing you and everything else because that brand awareness and that things are changing is the most important thing. And Dan Lanning has taken things to a point at Oregon where this is the highest peak that Oregon has ever been in terms of consistently. So when I got to Oregon in 1999, that's the year the uniforms changed. That's when the whole shebang,
Oh,
everything
wow.
has been different since then. And you look, they've played in the national championship game twice. They played against first against Cam Newton, and Dwyer was down, um, but they ended up losing that game by 3 points. And then a few years later, they play in the national championship game against Ezekiel Elliott and that Ohio State team. Ohio State wins. But when you look at the trajectory of the program, like the program has been more visible, more notable, more, and it used to just be the uniforms, but now there's a level of respect for the program. Like Oregon was ranked number one last year for more weeks than they've ever been ranked number one, and they were ranked number one the most weeks of anybody last year. And I talk about the fact that when you're building a program and you know how people feel about you when they feel comfortable with you in those spots, right? When like it would feel uncomfortable to people to put Alabama in the preseason to rank them number 18. That would feel uncomfortable, right? It would feel uncomfortable to do that to Georgia. Honestly, it's tough to not put Michigan in your top 20 25s. Like especially if Jim Harbaugh hadn't left. It just feels uncomfortable for certain brands to be in certain spots. It feels like a reach with some other programs. And but now the fact that Oregon has built something that way, now you feel very comfortable with them. Like if somebody has them in their top five, you're like, oh, okay, cool. That's what you expect. And you expect them to be there all the time. And you mentioned the beginning of Dan Lanning's career there. So he gets the job, Mario Cristobal leaves, transfer portal leaves, like it's The early signing day has already happened. So you really give a coach a mulligan for his first year. And you mentioned those two Washington losses his second year. And Washington had a phenomenal roster. And I actually think Oregon that year was one of the top three teams in the country. Washington was just better. and they showed that. And it was funny because some fans did have some frustration initially with the losses because they're like, oh, you lost in regular season, you lost it. But all of the games were 3-point games. But it is extremely rare that you find a coach who wins a national championship before his sixth year as head coach. It's just difficult to do. Like, yes, you will have like a Larry Coker situation down in Miami, but there was no transfer portal and he inherited a national championship team. So yes, you're gonna have a shot. Um, but you also have to build your program, and winning a national championship at this point in time, it's never been harder. It's never, because in the BCS era, it was two teams. So you have to win one game. You have to go undefeated in the regular season, probably, and then win one game. So if that were the case, Oregon would have ended up playing whoever the number two team was last year, going into the playoff.
Yeah, we played Georgia.
Yeah, and you probably like Oregon in that game. So, and then it was the 14 playoff. So now you only got to win two games. Now you have to win 3 or 4 games to win the national championship, which makes it that much harder. So I would overall assess. I'm like, Dan Lanning's doing a great job. How can you scoff at a 13-0 season? Yes, you don't like the way the Rose Bowl turned out, but I also believe that it was the first year of the playoff, and teams have to learn how to adapt to this system of having a bye. This is something that the NCAA and the playoff committee and all those people involved that they need to relook at, because having 25 days off between games when your opponent is playing a game in between is problematic. Like, everybody thinks that they want buys, but oh yeah, we'll take the rest in it. But you also get a little bit rusty. Even if you're practicing hard, you cannot mimic the intensity and the just a heightened awareness and sense of urgency that you can when you are playing football games. And that's why you saw all four teams, Georgia, Oregon, Arizona State, and Boise State, all start slow when it came to the playoffs. Like, they all had bad first halves, and then they all played better in the second half. So I do think that that's something to look at for coaches in terms of how they prepare their team, if there's anything that they can do differently. But then also when it comes to the just the way the playoff is set up, go to 16 teams or go down to 8 because there's no need for buys, and let's play it straight up. Let's go.
Yeah, I never understood why they didn't just move it up to 8 or 16 and
Yep.
have everything rounded out so that there are no buys. And the Rose Bowl, of course, yeah, people didn't like that. I get it. But you're comparing, Ryan Day in year 6 with a very old roster and a seasoned, more
Yeah.
seasoned staff to a team in Oregon that I think was still they're still trying to get to what they view as the mountaintop, and Ohio State's already there trying to maintain it. So, yeah,
Well, so Nick Saban, when he did the documentary with Bill Belichick a few years ago, he said there comes a point where you become the mountain, and Alabama became the mountain. Ohio State in college football history, they are the biggest brand in college football, pure bar none. And they've also had a like Oregon's football didn't really start until like the changes until really like 98. Like, that's when the decision was made, we are going to be a very good football team. And we're talking, what's that, 26 years compared to Ohio State that's been playing for 100 years. So, like, yes, what Oregon's been able to do in 26 years is highly impressive,
yes,
highly impressive. And they are knocking on the door for a national championship. And the main way that you can see that is in recruiting, right? Is that if Oregon finished outside of the top 10 in recruiting, everybody would be shocked. They'd be like, wait, what? If they weren't lined like when I came in, Oregon wasn't getting 5-star players at that point in time. Like they would occasionally get the Haloti Nada, they would get the Jonathan Stewart, they get the Cam Colvin, they would get one off every now and then. But now you expect 2, 3, 4 in a class. That's what's expected now. And yes, 5 stars alone don't win national championships, but you have to look at the macro and the micro of it. Is that the more 5-star players that you have and high 4-star players, because they just look better getting off the bus. And yes, there is development there, but they are typically more ready to play when they come in college. So if you have better players who are playing, well, more physically gifted players who are coached up well, who are playing younger, by the time they get to senior year, you end up a situation like Ohio State had last year where they have a crazy roster. And that's exactly what Oregon is right now. They're young at the wide receiver position, especially with Evan Stewart being likely lost for the entire season. They're breaking in a new quarterback, but they've done that each of the last couple years too. Their defense is really good on the defensive line. They're returning linebackers, but they're going to have to play some younger guys in the linebackers. Their secondary feels strong. They're in a position where they are one of the few teams, if they end up with good quarterback play out of Dante Novosad, or I'm so sorry, Austin Novosad or Dante Moore, whoever ends up being the starter, but it'll likely be Dante Moore. They get good play out of him. Defense should be much improved from last year, even though it was a good defense last year. They are one on the short list of teams that have a definite chance to win a national championship.
Yes, I, as I mentioned earlier, I think that people need to take Oregon a little bit more seriously this year. I understand that they're very young, that they're replacing a lot. It feels like they're in that transition from trying to build through high school and then use the portal to get starters to really supplementally using the portal and just bringing in so much talent that you become one of those top 4, top 5 recruiting programs. Thank you for your thoughts on Oregon. I think they're a little bit underestimated this year, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny given they came off of a 13
Right.
win season. It's
Right.
weird.
But that's really right where you need to be a lot of times, because that allows coaches to give other motivational techniques. Like, bro, ain't nobody talking about y'all. They not worried about you. They not worried about you. Yep. Y'all will go out. Yeah, you'll beat the bad teams. When you go to Happy Valley in week 5, you know what's going to happen to you. You gotta go play Penn State at Penn State. Man, listen. Y'all just take it easy because it's gonna happen anyway. And then you got the players over there. Nah, man, f that. Nah, okay. Oh, really, coach? All right. Let's go.
Yeah.
Workouts get a little more intense. There's a little more steel in the eyes. So coaches don't mind it as long as you are able to recruit at a high level. Like Oregon now has 3 5-stars committed, and it doesn't feel like they have a lot of momentum right now. And they're quietly putting together one of the best recruiting classes in the country, while the public sentiment is, oh, the momentum's not what it was.
Yeah, well, I think that's because people find Oregon annoying because since Oregon doesn't have a huge in-state recruiting base, whenever they recruit well, that means they're essentially taking players from states that would usually
Yeah.
field players that go to the
Yeah, when they
traditionally
take the
better
best player
schools.
out of the state of Texas last year in Decory and Moore, that can be annoying to Texas A&M, hell, Oklahoma, who recruits there, Alabama, Georgia, USC. They're like, bro, what is going on? Why do they like? It's funny because I'm a message board reader, and there are like Ohio State fans are annoyed by Oregon a little bit now. And they just got in the Big Ten and they won the Big Ten last year. They're annoyed with them already. USC did not want Oregon in the Big Ten. They're annoyed with them. And so if Washington is annoyed with them. And If everybody around you is sick of you and wishing on your demise in college football, you are doing the right things.
Yes, absolutely. And I've actually seen that sentiment a little bit with Clemson too, and that's what I want to move on to with Clemson. I don't think a lot of people like Dabo Swinney. He certainly has his antics about him from my perspective, but everyone does. I mean, everyone has their antics. And you put Clemson at number one in your preseason top 25. And I found that cool because even though I disagree with it, I think Penn State's going to be the far and away best team this year. I can see it
You,
happening.
hey, do you know what's funny about the Penn State thing?
What?
Is that Penn State has on paper everything that you possibly need. They're talented on defense. Yes, you can't replace Abdul Carter, but they've recruited really well. They have good players there. They have Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator, who was a national championship defensive coordinator for Ohio State last year. You have Katron Allen and Singleton, best running back duo in the country. The majority of your offensive line is back, including a couple NFL players. The group that was blamed for everything, though, the wide receivers. You went out and transfer portaled a couple really good players. You bring a quarterback back that some people, which I can't understand why, think is excellent. And so there are no more excuses. This is the year that Penn State is supposed to get it done. They are supposed to win the Big Ten. They are supposed to win the national championship. They are supposed to do all of those things, and they won't because Drew Aller is not the guy that everybody thinks Drew Aller is.
Yeah, I think the season hinges on Aller and Franklin.
Yeah,
Everything
that's it.
else, everything else is there. But we'll talk about Penn State here in a few
Oh,
minutes, a
so
little bit more about that.
yeah, but to go to
Um,
Clemson, which is what you asked me about, and I derailed over to Penn State. So I got a chance to go talk to Dabo Swinney, and I had my thoughts about Dabo before I met him, based upon sound bites. I'm on the West Coast, he's on the East Coast. I'm not watching a ton of his press conferences. I've seen his radio show some, like I peek in on some of the coaches' radio shows and stuff like that. But once you understand who Dabo is as a person and how principled that he is, you can't. I mean, it was impossible for me to dislike him or not understand his message, because he's about education. He is about paying the players, and that comment about, oh well, I'll go do something else, which even I commented on. I was like, yo, you got an $80 million contract, of course. Of course, oh, I'll go do something else. Yes, because you're financially secure. But his point was that if education can't be the number one thing, then I'm not doing this. And because that's what he's done with the Paul Journey there, and that's a curriculum that the players go through from freshman to senior year that's outside of their school curriculum, where they become men, they do internships, community service, all this great stuff. And when you think about Dabo, he says education saved his life. Came from a broken home. His mom lived with him for 3 years in his dorm room. They slept in the same bed. And he's like, education saved my life. So that's why he's graduated 90%, 98% of his players. And he doesn't push players to the transfer portal. He tells his coaches, you better recruit well because this is what you got. You got to be sure. And now he's going to be in a position. Think about this. He's got, in my estimation, the best returning quarterback in college football in Cade Klubnik. He
agreed.
has two of the top 7 wide receivers in the country. He has the best defensive line in the country. Their defense is always good. They've got good corners as well. Their offensive line should be very good as well. And they are phenomenally coached. Their defensive coordinator, Tom Allen, is really good. Why on earth? So when I was going through all the teams, I was like, Clemson has to start the season at number one, because what don't they have? They have everything. that you could possibly need to win a national championship and a national championship coach. And if he wins this year, he is going to change college football. He's going to change how people look at the transfer portal, how they look at NIL, how they look at their roster building and everything else because there are no shortcuts.
Yeah, I would. I can't even stand against that because he's been preaching against heavy portal usage forever. I mean, look at just 2 years ago now with Florida State going 13-0 and Clemson having a really bad start to the year and going 4-4 in ACC play, which is that's bad.
Yeah.
Go 500 in the ACC is a disaster. Um, and at that point, I kind of thought to myself, well, yeah, he has to use it. He has to not abandon his principles, but adjust to them. Otherwise, he's going to lose Clemson. And then the following season, Florida State goes 2-10 because their portal evals went from being perfect to being a total bust because you can't get everything right all the time.
Yep.
And then they lost 4 games again, but they played a tougher schedule. They won the ACC. They reached the playoff, and now they bring back 80% of their production, which
Well,
post 2020 is unheard of.
well,
It's like you said, they
last
bring
year,
everyone
what
back.
did they lose? Yeah, their fourth game was their playoff loss, but they ended up with another 10-win season. And it is, and you are right, is that, and when I got a chance to interview him, he did answer the question about the transfer portal. He said, if I left Clemson, half the roster would leave. I would go somewhere else. I would want some of the players that I had continuity with and all this stuff. He said I would use the transfer portal significantly more if if we if I left and went somewhere else. He was like, so I'm not knocking the people that do it, especially when you're changing jobs. But he was like, but my philosophy is, he was like, I've been here at that point in time. He was like, I've been there 16, 17 years. So if I need to hop in the portal for half my team, we're doing something wrong.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And he opened up and he got Will Helt and Tristan Smith, and I think Jeremiah Alexander was the third. I think Helt's a stud from his time in the Big Ten, and it sounds like they really like Smith. So he's open to at least supplementally using it, which I think when you get to the level Clemson is recruiting wise, that's all you need to do, and it's really all
Yep.
you should do. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you've done something wrong. So we'll see. I mean, I have Penn State one, you have Clemson one. I like it though, because I think that they're one of those teams where it's like Clemson. With all you bring back and what you have, I think both of those teams have to at least play for the title to say that their season is a resounding success. So the pressure's on for both
Yeah.
of them.
Oh, for
Ohio
sure.
St- Ohio State doesn't have much pressure. At
You
least
don't
for
think
now.
so?
At least for now. The minute they
Oh,
lose a
no,
game,
no,
they
no.
will.
I
The
think
minute
they
they
are
lose a
under
game.
immense pressure. I think Ohio State's pressure is on maximum because, first of all, their fan base, they don't care that they won the national championship last year. It's a whole new year. And the focus, more than anything, is he's got a lot of pressure. Ryan Day has a lot of pressure because, number one, whether they win the national championship or not, he has to beat Michigan. He has to. And if they don't win a national championship and they don't beat Michigan again, that's not going to go over well. I'm going to tell you that right now. He will go back to being persona non grata in uh, in Columbus, Ohio. And then also they're in a situation, they're breaking in a new young quarterback in Julian Sand, who I got a chance to watch play in high school. He's not going to wow you with, doing Lamar Jackson stuff. He's not going to wow you with the most amazing arm that you see. He's very consistent. He's a guy that is going to, where like his spray chart, it's gonna, like, you put all the dots in, there's not going to be, outliers. There's not going to be red flag throws anywhere or something like that.
Okay.
He's going to be consistent, which is highly important. And then you have their offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline, who's their best recruiter. He's the reason why they get all of their wideouts.
Yes.
And they demoted him just a couple years ago because he was the OC. They bring in Chip Kelly. He's supposed to learn under Chip Kelly. And they weren't happy with him, even though CJ Stroud had a good season and all that. They weren't particularly happy. So then now he's re-promoted to offensive coordinator. So this has to work. But I believe that regardless of what happens this season, this is Brian Hartline's last year at Ohio State because he
Oh,
interviewed for Tulsa's head coaching job last year and he did not get it. So if he does really well this year at offensive coordinator, what's going to happen?
he's gone.
He's going to get a head coaching job somewhere. If he doesn't do a great job and gets demoted again, how do you think that's going to go over?
Probably not well, unless they break the bank, because I
It
think he
doesn't
loves
matter,
Ohio
dude.
State.
He wants to be a head coach. So he will say, "All right, cool. I can't take my lumps and learn at Ohio State because that's not what you do at Ohio State. You don't rebuild, you reload." So, okay, cool. You're not happy? I'll go somewhere else where I can learn, grow, make a few mistakes here and there because everybody has to do that. Nobody just comes out and is perfect. So if you don't have a place to grow, take your lumps and all of that stuff, then it ain't gonna work. So I believe either way, he's out after this year.
Yeah, I can certainly see that happening. What do you think about him just like very briefly? What do you think about him in general? You think top 5 team, take a step back, reload entirely?
Um, okay, so in my preseason rankings and I do have them, I believe, top five, and I have them in my playoff rankings. I have them coming in at number 8. So I do believe that they will make the playoff again. Now, I don't believe they will win again, but I do believe they will make the playoff again.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty logical, fair assessment of the Buckeyes. Uh, any brief thoughts on Penn State other than what we touched on earlier? Anything you really like or dislike besides Aller?
Obviously you have to love their running back situation, their offensive line situation. I mean, this is why I put them like I've when every time I talk about Penn State, they have every single thing that you need. Like everything is lined up. The stars have aligned for them. Except for the fact that I don't believe in Drew Aller. However, I do understand that there are steps that can be taken in the offseason. He can get better, he can improve because his accuracy when he's in a clean pocket, his spray chart is weird. It's not as accurate as you would like it to be. Colt Nicky, their offensive coordinator, is a phenomenal offensive coordinator, but a lot of it is gimmick plays where it's one read and then he's chucking the ball out of bounds or checking it down. So I believe the next step for him is being able to read defenses and do some additional things that are winning football that the coaches don't just scheme up for you.
Yeah, he in big games, I know that he hasn't exceeded. If you take out the Boise State game, I don't think he's exceeded a 140 or 130 passer rating
Yeah,
in top
and we're not
25
talking about
matchups.
NFL because if
Yeah,
you have
college.
a yeah, if you have a 130 passer rating in the NFL, you have had a phenomenal game because the cap is what 158.3, where in college you can be well over 200.
Yeah, exactly. Like against Notre Dame, they didn't register a single catch to a wide receiver.
Yes,
It was
yes,
just it was
yeah,
bad. But
and
I
and they
agree.
blame the wide receivers. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not just that. I mean, there was
exactly.
a easy touchdown pass. It was like 5 yards on um I forget what the route was, but it was Singleton out of the backfield, and they had him, and he just threw it behind him. And
Yep.
if he
Can't
just
miss the layup.
exactly if he just makes the layup, they probably win.
Yep.
And then last but not least, any brief thoughts on Texas? I've said before that I think Sark is the best roster constructor in football. Don't know if you agree or disagree with it. I just think the way they're recruiting and how they've developed their roster
Texas
puts them
has
in
a
that
shot, boy.
position.
Texas has a shot. Now, granted, they lost a ton to the NFL, but they reloaded. They did everything is going to rely on the success of Arch Manning. And there are people who believe that he's the second coming of Patrick Mahomes mixed with Peyton Manning mixed with Tom Brady, right? I am of the opinion of sure, that's possible, but let's wait and see because there has been a question raised that is fair, which is if he was so damn good, why did Quinn Ewers continue to play last year after he got hurt? Fair question. Now, I do believe that Sark didn't want to do Quinn Ewers dirty, which is completely understandable. But if you're talking about winning the national championship, he probably should have came out of that game in the playoff, the one that they lost. So that's fair. Just like Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, same type of situation, which I actually thought was going to happen, but did not do it. So I do believe that there are relevant questions surrounding Arch. And now, granted, he's a much better athlete, so he'll be able to run the ball better than Quinn Ewers, and they're going to be able to do some different things. He's his lineage. He's been probably taught different things and things that other people can't learn from Peyton and from Eli and from his dad. So his probability for success is much higher. But at the end of the day, you still got to go on the field and prove it. And this Texas roster is on that short list of 10, 12 teams that can win a national championship.
Agree on all accounts. Well, thank you for coming on. Would love to have you back on again if given the opportunity. Make sure everyone to check out the Unafraid show. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell on his most recent video, and follow his channel. And again, comment your thoughts down below on this video. Let us know what you think about what George or I have said. Thank you for watching. Are there any final thoughts that you have before we get out?
No, Sam, man, I appreciate you having me on. I'll absolutely come on again. Much congratulations on your success. Keep on pushing, man.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you all in the next guest appearance.